Hey guys, this is Illusion Podfics, and we're back with Spider-Man Reborn by Grieving. This is Chapter 6. Peter decided, after a week, that trees aren't the problem. Poison ivy was. To some extent. He had to pester and prod at Dick before hearing much of anything on the Gotham rogue that gave him the tree the life it needed to battle Peter that day. She used to be a botanist before she became the rogue she is now. She brought the plants in the park to life, which was how Peter and Dick found themselves trapped until his dad could stop him. Dick said she wasn't all that bad. She could be reasoned with in most cases. Peter could appreciate a villain that can be talked down instead of brawling it out, but that didn't mean they were reformed. She attacked the park after hearing some news about a construction project that Dick didn't delve into for him. It sounded like Poison Ivy was not going out just for the sake of causing harm, which gave her a few points in Peter's mind. Despite this insight, Peter was wary to go back outside. "Come on, boy sir. I promise it's safe." Dick crouched beside Peter just inside the door leading to the garden. Peter wasn't scared to go outside. He would have won against the tree if he had more time. He just didn't want his brother to get trapped again. That's all. They had a lot of trees in the garden. Alfred kept numerous flower beds around the yard that he maintained personally too. Could Poison Ivy bring the elephant hedge to life? Would it be able to make elephant sounds if it was? Peter had never seen someone with powers like hers before, and there was a lot of possibilities to explore with that. Would she be a carnivore then? How did she get all her nutrients? No. Peter ducked around his brother before racing for the stairs. He wasn't scared of the outdoors. Not really. He was just being smart until he can get all the answers. Spider-Man always dived in head first, and it led to more problems. He was being tactful this time around. He won't make the same mistakes like before. He would rather sit in the library with Jason than face the elephant hedge in battle anyways. Plan and prepare. "Peter!" he squealed when his feet were lifted off the floor, Dick easily lifting him to his chest. "You can't stay inside forever. I'll be right there, okay?" "No, stay here," Peter demanded, wiggling in his hold until Dick put him back on the ground. If he had to go outside, he would rather do it alone. Poison Ivy was taken back to Arkham, but does that mean all the plants are back to normal? He had so many questions that he couldn't ask. At least if Peter went out alone, he could make sure none of the plants would go after Dick. His brother sat in the threshold of the door as Peter ventured out. He held on to Quack as he walked out into the open part of the garden. His eyes darted to all the plants around him, catching the rustling from the passing breeze. They moved like normal plants so far. Peter crept towards the trimmed hedge, stopping in front of the one shaped as a giraffe. It didn't move either. The head raised as if looking over the garden. "Hi." Peter kicked at it before darting back. The giraffe was motionless. Dick still sat in front of the door watching out for him, so Peter moved on to the elephant. This hedge was huge, reflecting the size of a real elephant. Peter poked its leg before jumping to the left. Again, the large bush was motionless. Maybe Poison Ivy couldn't control them for long. How far could her range be? How long could she maintain it? Does she need a direct connection to the earth to control them, or does she just need to be in the vicinity? More and more questions formed in his mind, filed away to investigate in the future. For now, he could practice cartwheels with Dick. "Okay," Peter waved for his brother. The garden was safe for them to practice now. "Jay?" Peter knocked on the door again when no one answered. "Open!" He brought Pride and Prejudice with him to barter some free time with his brother. While Dick was in and out of the house, Jason had been pulling away. Peter would find him less and less in the library, which always made it harder to spend time with him. Hopefully Jason's favorite book would be just the thing to get his brother back. Something was going on, and Peter wanted to help in any way he could. I'm here. The door opened as Jason yawned. He still wore his pajamas, with heavy bags under his eyes. Peter glared at the sight. What was he doing in here if he wasn't sleeping? Nap time! Decision made. Peter bailed past his brother. He raced for the bed in the corner before leaping atop it. The blankets were a mess. Clearly Jason had been sleeping this time. He accidentally kicked the laptop off the bed as Jason dived for it. He ignored the grunt as his brother landed on the floor in favor of crawling under the covers. Once settled, Peter patted the space beside him. He couldn't read to Jason, but he could make sure his brother catches up on the sleep in the way of cuddles, especially if he was going out on patrol tonight. A young vigilante needs to sleep if they were going to beat up criminals all night. Jason made a face before joining him on the bed, pulling the blanket around Peter. You're bossy, Pete, Jason grumbled as he pulled Peter close. Peter ignored it, inwardly smiling at his victory today. Until he could be a vigilante himself, he could make sure his family took care of themselves. Something was wrong. Peter could only watch as his dad raced away from dinner one night. His mom watched worriedly from her seat. His phone chimed with some kind of notification before he rushed out. Peter squirmed in his seat, silently hoping that Jason just needed a ride home. He knew something was wrong when Jason kept locking himself away. He knew it would go wrong fast if he was left alone for too long, but Peter couldn't do anything. He tried breaking into Jason's room, but every attempt had been foiled or failed. He tried pestering his mom and dad, but they told him to be patient. Even Alfred would tell him to give Jason space. Peter only managed to slip into Jason's room a handful of times, but he was forced to watch Jason disappear into thin air. He watched as his brother hid away in his room more and more. He watched as his brother's smile grew more forced. Jason had disappeared from the manor a few days ago, disappearing after patrol. His dad had been looking for him, and his mom tried to keep Peter occupied. It wasn't enough. Something was wrong, and he didn't need his spidey sense to feel it. He knew Jason wasn't just out. His brother was missing, and his dad just left to find him. Maybe Jason texted him for a ride, or maybe he bought something and alerted Bruce to his location. Either way, Peter couldn't do anything but wait. Peter stared at his peas. Maybe he should save them for Jason. Jason had to come home. Peter told himself that Jason would be hungry, and he'd want some food when his dad brings him back home, because there was no other option. Jason had to come home. Eat your peas, kitten. Jay not hungry? Alfred made plenty, love. Go on. His mom smiled, her fingers running through his hair softly. Dick had left a week ago for work reasons. Peter was sure it was superhero work, but no one wanted to tell the toddler anything. His brother couldn't even call, since he went somewhere too far away for service. Peter already hated it. He didn't like it when anyone left, and Dick and Jason were gone, and now so was Dad. After dinner, Peter sat in the boring room with his mom. They watched Finding Nemo while waiting for his dad and Jason. Peter wished he could have gone with him. He couldn't fight like before, but Peter could play distraction. Spider-Man took up the role plenty of times before. It was practically part of his shtick. He was sure that he could help his dad that way. He could have helped bring Jason home. He laid on the couch, head in his mom's lap, while Nemo fell into the dentist's fish tank. He hoped Jason would make it back home soon. Peter slowly drifted as his mom's hand continued to rake through his hair, the soothing feeling lulling him to sleep. Peter woke up when he was crushed in large arms. He pushed against the chest until he could see his dad's face, tears falling from his blue eyes. Daddy? I'm here, chum. I'm here. His dad ran a hand through his hair, kissing his forehead. Where Jay? Peter pushed away from his dad, peering around the room. His mom sat beside him, staring at Peter just as sadly. This wasn't right. She should be happy that almost everyone was home. Jason should be here. He should be making jokes and reading the classics to Peter again. Jay isn't coming home, Pete. His dad spoke softly, taking measured breaths afterwards. Why? His dad just stared at him, tears falling faster now. This wasn't right. His dad shouldn't cry. Peter tried to wipe them away as more slipped from his eyes. Jason was coming home. He had to. Batman just didn't find him yet. He just hadn't looked hard enough. Kitten, Jason isn't coming home. He was in an accident. His mom spoke softly, her hand taking his. Peter whined when his dad pulled him in another bone-crushing hug. No! No! Peter yelled, pushing away again. He failed, but he tried pushing again and again, kicking out at his dad. Jay! He has to look for him. Jason was okay. He was lost. He was trapped under a building somewhere, and he was alive. Peter did it before, and Jason was older than him. He would survive too. He had to. I'm sorry, Peter. I'm so sorry. His dad held him close as Peter stopped fighting. He didn't fail. He couldn't lose someone already. He wasn't ready. His dad started staying out later than usual. His mom would join him sometimes, or try to drag him home. Peter hated it. He hated that they would both leave at night, and he hated that his dad went out for longer and longer. Peter hated that Jason wasn't home, and Dick was still gone, and he was stuck inside. Peter hated a lot now. There was so much wrong about this, and he couldn't do anything. Alfred didn't like it either, which is probably why he would sometimes let Peter stay up later to wait for him. Peter assumed this was Alfred's way to passive-aggressively show his dad that he was doing something wrong. It didn't really matter in the end anyway. Peter would fall asleep too early and wake up in bed by morning. His dad would come in his room to check on him every night. Sometimes Peter woke up, and sometimes he didn't, but Peter still hated it. Daddy? Peter pulled at his dad's hand, the skin on his knuckles red and bruised again. Stay? I can't, chum. When Dick came home, he was angry. Peter heard them fighting from his room. Dick was yelling loudly, and his dad was quiet. Peter hated that too. His dad didn't talk as much as before, already communicating in grunts rather than words. Now, pulling sentences was like pulling teeth with him. Why don't you play with Quack, kitten? His mom spoke, drawing his attention from the raised voice. His dad wasn't fighting back. Okay. Peter sat on the floor in the library. Jason's chair had been empty for weeks now. Peter sometimes hoped he'd find his brother reading in the library if he opened the door at the right time, but he never did. He could hear footsteps pounding on the floor as they came close. His dad didn't make so much noise, so it had to be Dick. Sure enough, Dick came into the library much more subdued than he sounded earlier. The fight left him. His brother's shoulders drooped where they were usually, pulled back proudly. Hey, buddy. Dick's eyes were red, and his smile didn't reach his eyes. Hi. His mom excused herself, leaving the library quietly. She spends more time checking in on his dad, just as worried that he would disappear too. Peter trusts his mom to make sure he comes back. She wouldn't let his dad to just leave. His mom was like Pepper Potts, ensuring the billionaire kept himself alive when he couldn't do it alone. She would keep him alive and in one piece, at least for now. What are you up to? Dick sat next to him, poking Quack's bill. Playing. How are you, Pete? Is Jay home yet? Peter refused to believe Jason is dead. Parker Look couldn't be so cruel. It couldn't take his brother from him. Jason had to be alive, because if he really was dead, and that funeral was real, then no one was safe from him. Then it would mean Peter was the curse, because he wasn't a Parker anymore. He wasn't a Parker, so the curse couldn't be from the name. So he believed. He believed and hoped and wished that Jason would come home. "Oh, buddy." Dick picked Peter up, bringing him for a hug. Peter fell into it, wrapping around his brother as tightly as he could. "I'm sorry." Peter couldn't cry anymore, but that was okay. Dick cried for him, for the both of them. Peter held on to him, thinking, Jason was alive, and he knows it. He knows it because Parker luck wouldn't go for a Wayne. Peter was a Wayne now, not a Parker, so it couldn't have killed Jason. So Jason had to be alive. He just had to find him. One night, while everyone was out protecting the city, Peter decided he was ready to protect his family too. Alfred was in the kitchen, so Peter couldn't slip out from the back door. The front door had a camera, so did the gates, but there is an opening by the neighbor's side where the fences were open behind giant hedges. Peter squirreled away granola bars and water, shoving some clothes and Quack in his bag before he left his room behind. If Peter is the curse on his family, then he'll leave. Jason will come home, or Peter can find him, and everyone will be safe from it. No one will die, and Jason will be safe. Peter could survive on his own. He used to be 18. He remembers. He can figure it out after he brings his brother back. He will keep his family safe. He can't fail again. He had to be careful since Alfred was awake, meaning he might notice Peter's absence sooner. Peter just had to be quiet. He should be fine. Peter slipped into the library once. He saw the halls were empty. His mom only went in there for Peter, and so did Dick. Alfred went in to clean it, but it was too late for any cleaning. His dad never goes in there anymore. No one will notice he left from the window there, not until it was too late. Peter struggled with the window before he managed to slide it open enough. He threw his first bag out, quietly apologizing to Quack for the drop before he wiggled out after it. Peter fell into the short drop into Alfred's magnolias. "Sorry," he whispered to the plant, where they would attack him like the tree once did. He didn't suspect Ivy was around to have them attack, but it's better to be cautious. Once Peter left the plants, he started running for the fence. He knew the way, and also that Drake Manor was across the field after that. He could reach their driveway. He walked to the street before catching a bus at the stop up the road from them. Peter reached the large hedges, ducking into the thin branches full of leaves before following along the fence line. Soon he found the little holes he'd seen the rabbits disappear past and shoved his bag through it. He crawled in after it, pushing against the fence, snagging onto his hoodie. Stumbling to his feet, Peter started running again for the giant house he could barely make out against the moonlight. He was halfway there, and soon he could catch the bus. He'll figure out the rest later, but first... Peter. A large figure landed in front of him, arms crossed as Batman stared him down. "I'm not Peter." If Batman pretended not to be his dad, then Peter could pretend to. He had to go. "Peter," his dad repeated himself, the disapproval clear in his voice. "Go home." He couldn't. Everyone would die if he did. It was his fault Jason was gone, and it'll be his fault when the next person dies. He had to protect them by leaving. His dad just wouldn't understand. He doesn't know what Peter does. No. Peter waited for him to leave, crossing his arms in imitation to the vigilante. Batman shouldn't know who Peter is. Batman couldn't boss him around. "Go," Batman growled, lacking the bite Peter expected to hear from the Dark Knight. Peter huffed, staring up at him. "You go." He watched his dad take a deep breath, hold it, and release slowly. "Peter, it isn't safe. Go home, now." "Come home, Daddy." Peter could see the outcome already. He couldn't outrun his dad. He'd be dragged back home to curse the rest of his family. He couldn't keep pretending because this is all too real. He would be forced back home no matter what. But at least he could try to bring his dad back with him. At home, they were safe. People died when they left. His parents died when they went on a plane. Uncle Ben died in a corner store. Jason was missing, lost, not dead, never dead. Peter. His dad sighed, crouching down to his level. Please. You too, Peter sniffed. He was already caught. He couldn't run away yet, but he had to protect his dad somehow. Come home too. His dad pulled Peter for the comforting, familiar hug, his arms wrapping protectively around Peter. He fell into the hug, tears falling from his eyes as his dad held him. The armor was uncomfortable, but his dad was here. I'm sorry, chum. A gloved hand pulled his head close to his dad's chest, holding him tightly. I can't yet. Peter couldn't run when his dad carried him across the yard, over the fence, to the back door. Alfred stood with his mom, waiting as Batman passed Peter over to her. Peter only sobbed into his mom's shoulder, hating that he couldn't do anything. He felt a gloved hand run through his hair before it disappeared, his dad flying into the night. Alright guys, and that is the end of Chapter 6 of Spider-Man Reborn by Grieving. Hope you enjoyed this chapter, and I'll see you in the next one.